And I'll probably change the due date on that anyway, just for this time, just because of it. Okay, close those, close you. There we go. All right. So I'm gonna bring up Excel, and I'm actually gonna, if it's gonna let me, I want to pin it. So that way I can get to it quicker now because we're going to be using it quite often. This is the school's computer, so that's probably why I hadn't done that yet. Okay, but in 1B, we're going to be looking at how to use spell check. This is probably the only, this will be like 1 of 2 times that we actually use it in this class. But it's there and it's good to know. I've had many a times people turn things in with spelling errors, and they will lose points for it. So just know it's there. Entering data by range, we actually kind of already talked about this and we've used it. And then the quick analysis tool, we'll see how to do sums from there and what it does as well when we do so. And then, yeah. So let's go from here. As you can see, this one's shorter as well. But step 1, and you guys hopefully have opened yours up and have it. So I don't want to have to go back and forth between screens, but I can if I need to. So let me know if you need to see it. We're going to start Excel and open up a new blank workbook. And immediately they tell us to save it. So I'm going to go to save. Remember, when you go to save, when you initially create a brand new workbook, it opens the save as dialog box. So I'm going to browse to where it goes. Mine's in downloads. You guys probably have like one spot for yours. Hopefully you have something like on the desktop, something easy to access, or on your flash drive. So let's see, what was I calling these? Practice for fall 2020. Okay. All right. Again, notice that when you do so at the top of your ribbon, I can't see it on mine because of the shared screen menu, but at the top on your ribbon, you should see the title of the file. So what we just saved it as will appear there. So first things first, in cell A1, remember cells are named initially by their cell address, which is the column and then the row. And you should see it appear in the name box. In cell A1, we're going to type Central Valley and press enter. And then it says to type car products inventory. And we're going to press enter, and I'm going to go over to B3. So right now we're entering a bunch of things. And one of them will it'll tell you specifically to make a mistake at some point. So I'm going to enter in these things quickly. Quantity, I'm going to press tab. Remember when you press enter, it goes down. Shift enter would go up. Enter goes down. Shift enter goes up. And remember, tab goes to the right. Shift tab goes to the left. Those will be helpful, especially for those of you that have to do data entry at a job. There was a point in time when I was in high school where I was able to use even the keypad without looking and be able to tab and everything else. I was able to get through data entry very quickly. Well, I stopped using that, so it got a lot slower. But it was very helpful. And they forced us to do that in school, and they did that for a reason, because that was a big deal then. There were a lot of jobs that wanted just data entry, especially with everything beginning to move from paper to computers. There was a lot of work out there for it, and I had a lot of friends that got jobs doing so. And I know those jobs are still available now, even to this day. Because even though it's been required to have since electronic health records for some time now, think the Obama administration was where it first officially was mandated. A lot of places still don't have that, so a lot of people they hire people to do data entry. Still, so in cell A4, we're going to type in some car products. So I'm gonna have and this is where we're gonna start typing some things misspelled on purpose, so we can see how spell check works. And one thing to notice here too, notice when I start typing car, it says it automatically tries to fill in products inventory, and I spelled inventory wrong. But know that whenever you are doing Excel is always trying to help you. Remember, it is not smarter than you. It does not know what should be there or what should be done. It is just trying to help you based off of certain algorithms in the background saying, oh, well, this is what usually someone does. So in this case, it sees car products was entered above. And so it's saying, oh, this must be what you're trying to put here, because people tend to repeat, especially when they're in the same column. Port adapter, sticky dash, add window mount GPS for total retail value of all products. Okay, so got all of these. I think this is the only part that I misspelled that was not on purpose, but that's okay. We'll check that in a moment. So next it asks for us to adjust the columns. So to adjust the columns, remember you can go in the border between here. And I suggest doing it this way, again, because of the pixels. Pixels are the way that, and you will usually be given instructions on what to change the width to, and that will allow it to be the same on anyone else's machine. If you look for specifically entering in a certain width, it will change on someone else's machine because it's translating the pixels that are used. So as I drag this over, I'm going to 215. And honestly, going to a specific number of pixels is not best practice unless you absolutely know that you need to be in a certain spot for a screen that you're going to be presenting on or something. It's better to just, as I think someone mentioned before, to do auto fit, which that's mainly what we'll use after the first couple of modules. All right, and so as we did last time, we can make things look a lot better by doing a merge and center and changing the styles. So I'm going to, oops, I'm going to do merge and center from A1 to F1 here. I'm going to do the same thing for F2, A1, A2 to F2. And then I'm going to give the first one a title cell style, just like we did last time. And I'm also going to give the second one a heading 1 cell style. So again, cell style is in the Home tab Styles group. Now, things are looking pretty good, but we need to check for spelling. And you definitely should do this always, especially at the end of your document, to see if things are spelled correctly. So I'm going to go to the Review tab as soon as I can get to it. The menu is kind of in the way. There we go. So in the Review tab, there are a couple of things that you have here, and they have to do with changes or how the document looks and what's on here. So you'll notice that proofing is a group. So in case you want to use a similar word, or synonym, you have a thesaurus. And spelling. When you click this, just like it would in Microsoft Word, for those of you that have used Word before, you'll get a spelling dialog box that will show you what's typed and then give you suggestions. In this case, it should be Atana. So I'm going to change this to Atana. This second one, or third one here probably would also be a good option, but I'm going to choose the first one. Power. And then ask, what do you want to start from the beginning? Because it started at the I started at A2 because that was selected at that time. Some people select their entire sheet before they use spell check. You don't have to because they'll ask you to go through everything. It says everything's good, you're good to go. One other thing that it's gonna it's gonna do that. I want to make a mistake here just so you guys can see something else in here. So um, another thing here is this autocorrect. I would not suggest using this because it will automatically go through and pick what it thinks is best, which will be usually the first suggestion. You don't want to do that because, for instance, like I said, with that antenna, we need to be antennae with an E at the end. Or I spell something that's someone's name or name of a company, but it sees it as a spelling error and it goes and changes it. That would be very disrespectful, right? Like if I had a weird name for a company and I'm trying to do a presentation for them and it comes in and something else is up there, it's kind of weird and very embarrassing. So to prevent that, don't use autocorrect. Um, Go through, and sometimes people use autocorrect because they don't want to go through a bunch of errors. It's okay to go through a bunch of errors because they may not be errors. Remember, the computer is programmed to act and think a certain way, following certain rules and protocols that the creator put in it. The creator does not know everything. The computer does not know everything. You are the one that's using it. You tell it what to do. So it'll give suggestions. Those suggestions are not truth. So you can also check for accessibility. So it makes sure things could be read. Say if someone was blind, they may use a screen reader to tell them data and where things are and how this sheet actually looks. Translating in case you need to translate to a different language. And then other changes which you won't look at in this course. If you take the second level, we'll look at some of these other things here, which such as tracking changes, which allows you to look to see what happened from the first version of this to a newer version, or someone shared this to me. What are any changes in between that? So, and then we'll protect stuff though later in here. This ink thing is newer. This is because people are using tablets. You can, if you have a tablet or a touchscreen device, and you have Excel, you should actually see another option up here for draw. And you should have some availability to do so with ink. So, all right. Any questions about using spell check in Excel? No? Okay. All right, so next we have some more data to enter in, but the way they want you to do so is by selecting B4 to D7. The reason for that is with this selected, B4 is the active cell. What I can then begin to do is to begin to type certain data into here, and as I press enter, it will automatically move to the next part of this. Oops. Notice how I made a mistake and I said, oops, I decided I need to go back up. I was able to use Shift Enter to go back up. Notice also how I'm not clicking to these sections. I'm just using the keyboard. Notice I'm at the last line here. Normally when you would press enter, it would move from B7 to B8. But because we selected the range and we we're typing things in, what is actually going to happen is it's going to go to C4. So it goes all the way down the column that's selected, and then it'll go over to the next column that's selected. So this also makes data entry a lot faster for people. Because you can just look at the sheet that has the information instead of having to look back and forth. So when I'm done, notice it goes back to the first one again. That's how you can enter data in a selected range. Okay, so again, it travels down the column and then goes over to the next column, and then when it's done, it'll start back over again. You can use enter and shift enter in here. If I were to use tab, notice it goes over to the next column automatically, so you can do that as well. Shift tab takes me back. So those commands that I mentioned since the beginning, those are very important, using enter, shift enter, tab, and shift tab, because they make data entry a lot faster, especially when you select what you're entering first or where you're entering first. All right. Are there any questions about entering by selecting data? Or selecting data first, or selecting your range first, I guess I should say? No? Okay. All right. So now comes a little bit of thinking on our part, because the thing with Excel, a lot of times where people say that they struggle with it, or that, oh, I don't work well with spreadsheets, is because they have to think about what is going to be entered in here. And that usually comes down to a formula. And I want you guys to understand that you all know this. And most of the time it's things that are obvious. Um, and you can use common sense to come up with the formula. And then sometimes you may have to ask your superior or colleague what type of formula you should put in here. So I'm going to ask you all though, because you guys are let's pretend you're my supervisors, that I have trouble with this. It asks for total retail value, and I have a retail price, I have an average cost, and I have a quantity. So some of these may be used, some of them may not be used. But I need to find a total retail price. So how would I find a total retail price if I know how many items I'm buying, average cost, and the rental price? Again, you may use all of these, you may use none of these. Well, of course, I did give you the answer in the instruction, but that's how you want to think about using the spreadsheet. You want to say, okay, well, I'm looking at total here. So totals usually make people think they just have to add up. Well, in this case, it's asking for the total retail price, or total retail value. So I know that means I need to know what is the price of one of them, and then I'm going to multiply that by how many I'm buying. So in this case, I'm going to do equals first, because that's how you let Excel know you're entering in a formula. I'm going to type B4. You notice it gets highlighted. For multiplication, I'm going to use Shift 8, because that's the asterisk. The asterisk is how we will do multiplication within Excel. So notice average cost had nothing to do with what we're with this at all. It was just quantity times retail price. Okay. All right. I need the same for E5 through E7. So I could go through each one and enter it in, or I could copy it down using the fill handle. In the fill handle is the bottom right-hand corner, the black cross. Do not confuse that with this guy. This allows you to move it around, to move what's within the object. Fill handle allows you to copy and drag things. So drag this down here. So again, things could be, we type this in lowercase, it automatically put this uppercase. Remember, that does not matter. One thing I do want to show you all is, notice how I click in here so I can see the formula. If I click somewhere else, oops. Oh, yeah. If I click somewhere else, it starts trying to add it into the formula. So you have to be careful sometimes. So what I tend to do, and people will go, well, actually, yeah, they'll do is what I just did. Those like, oh, okay, I need to delete that, because they may catch it. A lot of times people don't catch it. If you were to do something like this, and you're like, hey, what happened? You can use Control Z to undo. Undo is up here as well. Something else that to know is that sometimes people are trapped in the cell. They look in here and they're like, I don't know what's wrong with this. I'm trying to get out of this. Everywhere I go, it still keeps adding in something else. Well, let's say you were a prisoner stuck in a jail cell. And how would you get out? If you were stuck there for life, but you needed to get out, how would you get out? You would escape. So if you press the escape key, it'll take it back to what it was before. So if you're inside of a cell editing a formula or enter something in, and you feel like you made a bunch of mistakes and you don't know how, you just want to start over, yes, you could just go in, delete the whole thing, or you could press escape, which will take you back to the previous thing before you started making changes. Okay. So if you're ever stuck in a cell, just press escape. Right? Stuck in a cell, you gotta escape. Okay. So I want to tell you guys that. Yeah. All right. So taking into account what we talked about on Tuesday, and I believe we talked about it before that as well with the accounting and number formats. We're going to take B4 and B7, and we want to change the format of it, the number format. So I'm going to go to the Home tab. So that's where my number group is, where I can change the number format. Notice again, anytime you enter something, it begins off as general because Excel, you're telling Excel to pretty much figure out what type it should be. I type numbers in, so you should understand that it's a number. Excel, if I type text in, you should understand that it's text, and therefore allow certain functions and formulas to be done on them. But we need to change this. The quantity would look better if it had, especially since it's in the thousands, if it had some commas. So I'm going to do comma style. Remember, comma style is the same as accounting style, just without the dollar sign in front. Would it make sense for us to have dollar signs in front for quantity? No, because this is not money. This is how many items we have. So I'm going to do comma style. But remember, it's the same as accounting, except it doesn't have a dollar sign. That means it has those two decimals at the end there. Well, we don't want to have fractions of these objects. We're going to have only whole numbers. So I need to make a change to the way the comma style was displayed. To make that change, I need to decrease the number of decimals that are shown here. You can increase and decrease the number of decimals that are shown in the number format. It is a common thing that is done. Therefore, they added commands for it. So you have little icons for increase and decrease decimals. So if I wanted to increase the number of decimals, I would press increase decimal. If I wanted to decrease the number of decimals, I will press decrease decimals. And there you go. There will be times in your assignments where it asks you to do comma style or comma number style or comma number format, and it'll say with 0 decimal points. It will make sense that you have 0 decimal points because it will be something like this, a quantity amount, or something that should be a whole number and should not have has nothing to do with money. So this is what you would have to do. You would press the comma style, and then you would change the decimal. Notice up here what changes is it says custom, because this is a custom. This is not something that's pre-built into here. There are ways to get it pre-built into here as an option. We'll look at other times in the future where we change the number format ourselves, and that's what a custom comes from. Okay. Questions? All right. So next up, we need to select E4 through E7, and we want these. We want to take the sum of these. So we're going to see what we get when we do this. So because I want to know what's the total retail value for all the products. So I want to take the sum of these. Well, with these selected, I showed you all on Tuesday how when things are pre-selected as a group like this, you can sometimes do a quick analysis using the quick analysis icon down here. So I'll bring up a quick analysis toolbar, and we can do some conditional formatting. We'll talk about that later. We can add some charts if we wanted to from here. But what we're interested in right now is some totals. Inserting tables and smart lines are also available here. But as I said, we want to enter in some totals. Now, when you hear the word totals within Excel, it does not mean just taking a sum. It means doing some type of function by taking a lot of data at one time. So the most common ones that are used are sum, average, count, min, and max. You'll notice here from the quick analysis, there are other things too, doing a total percent, doing a run. So how is it changing over it? But one thing to note is that you have these sums appear in 2 different locations. So notice here it has the blue cells selected and it's on the bottom. That means our sum would appear below the data that was selected. Over here, and there's more of these options as well. It appears on the right side, so that means it would appear to the right of what's selected. We want the total to be on the bottom of it, so I'm selecting this. I mentioned on Tuesday also that totals tend to be in bold, and when you do things like with total sales style, that's where you get those solid lines above and two solid lines below. But totals are in bold. If you use the quick analysis tool, it will automatically put it in bold. If you don't, it will not. So that's something else to keep in mind. Last time we had to do it by, not by hand, that sounds kind of weird, but we had to actually tell it to be bold. In this case, we don't have to. So if you use a quick analysis tool, that's the one way you can tell if you did it correctly, because they'll be bold. Okay. So next we need to change some other styles. So I'm gonna look at C5 through D7. Because all of this is money. Honestly, I should go the whole way. But there's a reason I'm not at this moment in time. But these are all money, and as we talked about last time, money should be an accounting number format and then comma style. So we normally do the top and bottom layers as dollar signs. But in this case, we're going to do this as comma style, so no dollar signs. And I'm also going to do C4 and D4, or sorry, C4, E4. And I'm going to do E8 as well. So I'm holding down Control and selecting E8. And I'm going to do these as accounting. Now, if I wanted to, I could have also typed those selections up here, as I showed you guys before. So I'm doing it again just so it starts getting in your brain. It just becomes stuck there. The more things are filtered through your mind, they get to your heart, so you won't forget them. So if I were to type C4, E4 here, then a comma, and then E8, it will select all of those for me. So if you ever have trouble multi-selecting, just go to the name box. It'll probably be quicker anyway. So one other thing here is that we're going to apply a total style to this guy, because this is where our total is. So I'm going to go to the styles group, sales style, and go to total. And I think I made a mistake when I wrote this initially. I forgot to have this be a part of the comma styles. I'm going to make that change in my copy. Oh, come on. There we go. Sorry about that. Hopefully one of you would ask me why I didn't do that this time, right? Because I told you guys that's generally how things go. The first one and the last one have the dollar signs. Everything in the middle is just comma style. Now it looks a lot better too. Okay. So apologize about that. So now we have everything set up in a decent way, right? Things are formatted. We have our comma styles and our accounting numbers, number formats as well. So now we have some more formulas to make changes to, or to create. Notice in column F, we are asked to make this a percent of total retail value. So it would be important to understand what a percent is. So a percent is a part of a whole. So for instance, in this case, we're in F4. We want to know what is the, what part of the total retail value does this antenna signal booster hold? So how much of the total retail value comes from the antenna signal booster? Well, how would I figure that out? Well, I would take what part of the total retail value it represents, which would be this guy here, because it says total retail value, and we know that this is pointing to the antenna signal booster. And the whole of the total retail percent would be here, because this is the total we took for all the retail values. So in order to find this percent, it's a formula, so I'll start off with an equals. Then I will take E4 and I will divide by E8. And I get a percentage here. This percent is represented as a decimal. We will want to make changes to that later on, right? Because it will make sense if it actually looks like a percent. And many of you probably have guessed, because we talked about it already, that this is how we'll do that with that percent style. So, of course, we want to just do the same thing for the rest of these. So it has E4 divided by E8, okay? So I'm gonna just use my fill handle to drag this down to get the others, and I get an error. If you ever see a hashtag, I'm trying to use that term more, I used to just say pound. But if you ever see a hashtag and then something afterwards, that is Excel's way of saying, hey, there is an issue here. Do this real quick. Even this, if you see something like this, hashtag means that there is an issue here. In this case, if you see a bunch of them, that just means it's just a column width error. So you would just need to adjust it. Okay. In this case, it will kind of give you a hint of what the issue is. So it says div and then has a slash and then 0. So I can guess what that is actually from this already. The error it says is dividing by 0. You can also see that here, and we'll do error checking later. But in this case, it says the formula of the function used is dividing by 0 or empty cells. Well, that's crazy. We had it dividing by E8, right? What are you dividing in F4? All right, I'm gonna open that back up here. So in F4, we have E4 divided by E8. It's the percent of total retail value. So we're taking the retail value for this portion, the antenna signal booster, and dividing it by the total for retail value for all the products, because a percent is part out of a whole. And then the issue now is what's happening in F5, F6, and F7. Oh, well, it went to E5, right, which is what we wanted. And then the next one would go to E6, which is what we want. And then it goes to E7, which is also what we want, or which is also what we want. The issue, though, is it's not staying at E8. Look at it. It's doing E5 divided by E9. And as that error told us, when I looked at the screen tip, it was dividing by an empty cell. Well, how did that happen? I just dragged it down with the fill handle. The fill handle should know what to do, right? Excel should know what to do. Well, no. The first number in cell B4 is wrong. Ooh. Oh, thank you, y'all. Yeah. All right. So we need to make some changes here in order for this to be correct. So remember what I said was when you use the fill handle to drag down, what it does is it recognizes a pattern. A lot of times, sometimes it'll just copy straight what you have. But most of the time, it'll look for a pattern. In this case, especially when you're using a formula, you are referencing certain cells. We are in cell F4, and we're referencing E4 and E8. As we move down, these cells that are referenced should also move down. That's why it went from E4, E8 to E5, E9, E6, E10, E7, E11. It's going down because we dragged it down. If we had dragged up, it would have gone up to E3, E7. Okay. Is that clear to everyone? Anyone have questions about why it is given this error? Why it is given this error? Because of how we dragged it down? No questions on that? Okay, good. Good. So how do we fix that? Well, to fix that is actually quite simple. I'm going to go back to this first one. if I know for certain that I want a portion of my formula to reference a specific cell, even when I copy it, it is always best practice to do what's known as an absolute reference. That means you will absolutely refer back to cell, in this case, E8. All it is putting dollar signs around the parts that I want it to absolutely stay the same. I can do that by having it selected or having my insertion point near it and pressing F4 on my keyboard. Some of you may have to press the function key and then press the F4. Some of you just may type in the dollar signs. All of it's the same. But when you type in dollar signs, it goes in front of each part, not behind. It goes in front of each part. I'm going to try to zoom in there a bit so you guys can really see that. Dollar signs go in front of each part of the cell address, not after, in front of it. Okay. So what this is going to do now is it's going to go from E4. As we go down, it'll go to E5, E6, E7, which was correct. But this guy, E8, is going to stay at E8, E8, E8. Because we told it has to stay there because this is now an absolute reference, not a relative reference. Think relative like how you are related to like your cousin or a sibling if you have. You are alike, you are similar genetically, but you're not the same. And so as you move from you to the next person, you have different names, right? Your different identities. So relative reference, this is E4. As I move down, it says, okay, I guess I should still be E, but I should go down to the next row too. So I'm gonna go from E4 to E5, E6, E7. This guy over here is an absolute reference. I am absolutely referring to you, E8. So it says, oh, I need to be E8, E8, E8. Okay. So now I'm gonna use the fill handle. When I do so, I don't get an error anymore. And if you look here, you'll notice the E8 stayed the same in each of these. That's called an absolute reference with those dollar signs. I'm gonna put it back to a regular zoom. I can always zoom in too if anyone ever needs to see something more or is having trouble seeing. Are there any questions about the references? No? All right, sweet. Please feel free to ask anytime if you have them. Okay. So now that we did that, all that's left is for us to make some final changes to this. So in cell B5, it says that we made an error. It should actually be 4111. Before I press enter, I want you guys to take a look at a couple of things. Look at the total retail value and look at the percent and all the percents. Okay. Look at those. I'm going to press enter. All of those changed, right? The total retail value here changed, this changed, and all the percents changed. You guys understand why? So all of the, yes, good. So as you probably have noticed that all of these were dependent on B5. We'll look at other ways to tell dependency, but you should always be aware that when you're making changes to a cell, you want to know are there any other cells that depend on this cell? In other words, are there any other cells who have formulas related to this one? So as we make that change, all of those others will change too. Okay. All right, so it tells me to double click on D5. And you'll notice that this 1949 should be 1999, or sorry, 1979. And so again, those cells changed because this was being used in order to create the total retail value, which is being used to create the total retail value for all products, which is being used to create all of these percentages. Okay. All right. So in cell A2, it asks for us to add the word value after inventory. And in B3, it tells us to type on hand, excuse me, after quantity. Now, some of you are probably, I won't say freaking out, but some of you are probably looking at this says, I can't even see the column headers anymore. And look at F, it goes all the way over to H. It makes me thinking that this should stretch to H. Well, no, this stretches to F because that's the last column we're dealing with. You may have noticed when I was in the merger center, I almost went to H, and then I looked and I was like, wait a minute. F stops, this column stops here. Our data stops here. So that's where our title should go as far as. So there are some changes that we need to make to that. Well, first, let's finish off our data and our calculations here. Let's make these percent style like we said we were going to do. And, okay, see you. And so when we do so, you may need to decide, in this case, I tell you what I want, but you may need to decide whenever you do percentages, should it have decimals or not available or being shown. So we want to actually show at least one decimal. The more decimals, the more information is being shown to the user, which can be used in analytics. Like if I go back to just no decimals, you may say, oh, this is 23%, 42%, 8%, and 7. Well, if I increase the decimal, 7.8 is probably going to sound better to most people. 2 decimal places is usually the limit for people because they can think about that money wise. So like if I had $100 to invest in this, then $23.12 would have to go towards this. That usually helps people. But for the most part, 0 to 2 decimal places are what people use, except for when we do loan transactions. With get the interest rate percentage, those usually go to 3, and we'll see that actually in this class. But want to increase that to 1 decimal place. Now we're going to do something else here. We're going to insert a new data entry here. We're going to insert a new row. So in it says insert row above row 3. In order to insert a new row above row 3, we need to have row 3 selected. Now, anytime you insert something, it will always appear before whatever you have selected. Notice I said before. So if I want to insert something above row 3, I need to have row 3 selected. If I wanted to insert a column before row B, or sorry, column B, I would have to have column B selected. You'll always put it before. Okay. So I have row 3 selected. And to insert it, there's 2 ways to do this. So I could go to the Home tab in the Cells group. You'll notice the Insert command here. Because I have a row selected, I could just click that. Or I could click the drop down and click Insert Sheet Rows. I tend to do the other method, which is to right-click on it and click Insert. That is what's most commonly used by most people because it's usually faster, especially if you're already in other tabs. You don't have to go back to the Home tab to do so. You can just right-click on it. Most of the things that you do from the Home tab, you could just right-click on and do it from there. All right, so with this new one created, notice how, I'm gonna click somewhere else so you can see it. Notice how it has the same style and format as the one above it. That's another thing. When you insert something new, it says, okay, what's above me? I'm gonna copy the formats that it has. Okay. So that's why you see that solid line underneath. And in fact, if I go click sales, if I go select cell styles, you'll see heading 1 here. It's already selected. So I'm gonna call this as of March 31st. And I'm gonna merge and center across. And it doesn't make sense to have this be heading 1 style because heading 1 is the car product's inventory value. And this is a example of the car product inventory value. It's the one that's as of March 31st. So I'm gonna click styles, or or go to styles group and click cell styles. I'm gonna change the heading too. Notice that the font gets a little smaller, and then even the color changes to be a little lighter. That's showing emphasis and how emphasis changes as you go from title to different heading settings. Okay. All right. So we want to now insert a new column to the left of this. We're going to add some cities where we could find these items. So again, to insert something, you want to select where you want it to go before. So we want it before column B, to the left of column B. So I'm selecting column B, and I'm going to click insert. So that was click insert. Again, I usually do it from right clicking, but I wanted to show that you could do it from both. Another thing to denote with that is that if you were to use another spreadsheet software for something else, I know, like I said, Excel is what's commonly used. You have a lot more available to you with this, but the other ones will allow you to insert from just a command. You can insert either way. You can insert before, after, up, or down. It lets you do all of that. But Excel, it just goes before whatever is selected. Okay, so in before, I'm gonna type city and press enter. I'll type Medina, Olean, and Guaf. Does anyone know where these are? I do not. I know they're in some Central Valley. I don't know what state that's in. I've never heard of these places. But anyway, so remember how I also said that this when you insert something, it always goes to look at what's before it and copy over its formatting. Look at the look at the column width that we had. We had a pixel size of 215 here. Look at this. We inserted B. It did the exact same thing. So even it even formats to the same column width. Okay. Or row height. If we were inserting a row, it literally copies what's going on before me because I want to keep that same style because Excel expects that's what you want. Again, it may be right, it may be wrong. You'll have to decide that. For instance, that was wrong. We didn't need it to be that big, right? There's way too much white space here. So we need to make some changes. So I'm going to select these guys here. Oh, well, before I do that, I need to get rid of the elephant in the room. Column D. Average cost is not being used, and it's probably not good for our presentation that we're trying to do as well. I don't need to show what the average cost is across in that city for these items. So I'm going to delete this column. So to delete a column, you can go up here and press delete. You can click the drop down if you want to get more specific and say just this column or just cells. I can also right click and delete. Notice that when you delete it, everything else moves up to its appropriate spot now. It doesn't just get rid of the elements inside of it. Undo that real quick because most people will come up here and just press delete. So it says that first of all, it has an issue with that because of the merge cell. But even if the merge cell is not there, if I press delete, it would just clear the content. I don't want to clear the content. I want to actually delete this column. So it's very important to denote that difference. Clearing content gets rid of what's in the cells. Deleting it actually gets rid of the cell. Okay, so just be very aware of that. All right, so we're gonna change the column width of these guys to 100 pixels. Remember, if you select them all at once, you can go in between any of these. It doesn't matter. I'll just pick this one because I can. And we're gonna make it 100 pixels. We know that column B is already a lot larger than that. So, but even so, when we move this to 100, it automatically changes as well. Okay. I haven't seen this on a Mac, but someone did tell me that there is a way on a Mac to do a column width and enter pixels instead of having to enter in measurements. I wish that was available on Windows too. I know someone has written some programs to do that for you. However, those I don't usually trust downloading those because who knows what's been added on with them. Okay, maybe I'll create one and give to you guys, or maybe it's one of you all will create and give to us. It says to select B4 to F4. We're gonna further clean this up by changing these styles. let's give these guys center alignment. You guys, you all have probably seen this in Microsoft Word before, but you may not have seen middle alignment. So middle alignment is a center, but for vertically. Because as I mentioned before, everyone wants things to be centered, right? They make things look a lot better. It's easier on the eye. So we centered those vertically and horizontally. So center and middle align. We're gonna apply cell style heading 4, which we did before as well. There's one other thing we're gonna do here, which is new. We're going to wrap text. And what this does is it allows you, as you can see from the screen tip, say if something isn't fitting correctly within a cell, you can use wrap text to have it appear on multiple lines so that it can be seen. And it'll automatically adjust the row height accordingly. So one other thing in regards to wrap text, just so I can show you, if I were to click enter here, it's automatically wrapping the text because of the height. However, let's do another spot here. So if I were to say this is an example, this should be on the new line, the next line. If I were to do that, it stays all on one line, right? If I were to wrap text here, it's not doing what I wanted, right? So go back. What I could do actually when I'm typing this is to straight up tell it to go to the next line. To do that, if I ever wanted to do that or there was a need for that, I could press Alt and enter, and it will automatically move it to the next line. So that's how you do a return carriage return within a cell. For those of you that understand that term, it really just means to move it to the next line. There's more to what's actually happening with a carriage return, but you can think of this as entering a new line within the text. So it's Alt Enter that allows it to go to the next line. And that will automatically make adjustments after that. Okay. So Alt Enter is another way to do wrap text. This will do it automatically based off the measurements it sees within the column width and knowing what needs to be seen. The other way, you can be more specific about what is seen and how it's seen. Okay. All right. So 2 more things that were left to do. Center the text in B5, B8, and apply the A9. We're going to apply a certain themed cell style. What are cell styles? By now, you probably are fully aware cell styles are within the cell styles command in the styles group on the home tab. So I'm going to click here and I am going to go to my theme cell styles. It says we want accent 5 and we want 20%. So theme cell style 20% accent 5. So click that here. Notice also that these have certain colors with them, but they don't have the colors. They have the colors on the front of the names, but they are listed here based off a percentage and certain accents. That is very important to note because the last thing we're going to do here is we're going to change the theme's overall color. Right now, it's, you can probably imagine it's preset to something, but it gives a bluish color. If I go to page layout and I go to themes, to themes group, and I change the color here. So it's preset right now to office. And look at the shades. They have like a darker gray, white, and then blue. That's the shades that it goes towards. We're going to choose red. And when we choose red, notice how all of these turn to a more reddish color. One other thing I want to show you is look at the cell styles. They also change towards that reddish color. I just wanted to show you that as you change the theme's colors and change different things about the themes, other features in Excel will automatically adjust as well. Okay. So that's everything with part B. You'll notice in the project, you're also to, of course, center the thing horizontally and add certain tags. I didn't put that within these instructions. I I probably did and deleted it on accident. But those are always very important. So I'm going to refresh on how to do that. If you want to add tags, those of you that have a Mac, you have to go to where it says Excel in the top part, the little gray bar you get up there, and then go to Preferences, I believe, or Properties, and then make the change there. For us, and it's called keywords on a Mac. That's what it is. It's called keywords, not tags, on a Mac. But for everyone else that has a Windows computer, we go to the Backstage view by clicking File. You can click Show All Properties if you need to, just to see more, and then add some tags. I'm gonna just call this car product inventory. You want to make sure you're the author here, right? So, especially if your computer has another name saved as or you're logged in as a username that is very ambiguous, like someone that I wouldn't recognize it as you. If it's a nickname or something, that's fine. I'll probably recognize that. But that's something to denote period. You should always know that. You can also change that by when you log in. Oh yeah, I don't think I mentioned this, but you can sign into your Office. Yours are probably already signed in because, especially if you downloaded it using the Microsoft Office 365 at the beginning, like we talked about, you can it should automatically be signed in. But you can always sign in with your MEID at maricopa.edu as well, and this should change based off that account too. Whenever you create something new. Okay, so I did that, and I'm also going to go to page layout, and we're going to center the thing horizontally, add a footer on the left. So I'm going to show you how to do that again. In the page layout tab, page setup group, I'm going to click here. This is where I can make changes from portrait to landscape if I wanted to. My margins, I'm going to center on the page horizontally. I'm going to go to header and footer. I'm going to customize the footer. And in the left section, I'm going to insert my file name. I was not sure which one it was. I could hover over these until I saw in the screen tip, insert file name. Again, cool things for your own personal life. Can I do it again? Yeah, I'll do it again. So I'm gonna cancel that. So to do the page setups, which normally will be at the end of every one of your assignments, you'll go to the page layout tab, page setup group. We can launch its dialog box here. This is easier than going through each of these separately because they'll all be there at once. And some of these will even open this anyway. We can change the orientation here if we wanted to. Also changing the scaling, which is also up here. In margins though, we want to center on the page horizontally. You will always want to do this. There will be times where you may want to do this vertically as well. But as we talked about, that looks kind of weird, especially for what we have right now. So we're just centering on the page horizontally. Header footer, custom footer, and we're going to insert file name. Again, if you're not sure which one is insert file name, you can hover over each one to see the name of the command. And we want file name in this case. Some of you will get so used to this that you'll just start typing directly in here, the ampersand, the square brackets with file, because that's what it is every time. We want it in the left section. If I ever want to go to another section, I would have to click in there first. I'm gonna click OK. You'll notice that it does insert the file name automatically there. And we have not done anything with this yet. We will do that eventually. But I'm gonna click OK. That change has been made. I'm going back just so you guys can see it to print. So there it is. Notice that things are on actually 2 pages. which does not look the best. Ways to change that, I could change it to landscape, right? Because they'll give me more paper. I'll show you guys that here. Something else I could do instead of doing that is at the bottom here for scaling. I could tell it to fit all the columns on one page. Oh, what's that? Oh, sorry. Okay. So I was just doing the page setup. Yeah, I'll go back. So in the page layout tab, in the page setup group, click here to launch the dialog box. If you in the header footer tab is where we'll insert the file names. And you generally, actually, on every assignment, it'll be in the left footer. Sometimes they'll ask for other things as well, but if you click custom footer, it should pop up automatically in the left section. If you're not sure, you should click into the left section. See how my insertion point is blinking? And then I will click the insert file name command, which is the one that looks like an Excel sheet. When I click that, I get this ampersand file name, and I'll do it so you can see it happen. Okay, so I got the and, the ampersand sign, and then square brackets and file. I click OK. I can see it here that it did insert file name. And I click OK, and it's done. Are you good there, Sandra?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I messed up at the heading part. At the beginning, I put like the Central Valley and the car product inventory value all the way to H, but then I fixed it, but there's still like extra colors where G and H are for the next for lines 2 and 3, but I still moved it over to A through F. But
Okay. So I'm gonna kind of try to set up the the same scenario here. So you accidentally had merge and center all that, and then you undid that merge and fixed it. But as you said, you have noticed that those cell styles are pretty much still there, right? Kind of like,
yeah, like the color lines are still there.
so it looks like this now, right? You see mine?
Yeah, but the colors, it's like the bold red, maroon is on the first line and the bottom line.
Okay. So in order to fix this, all it comes down to is I can select those cells. So I'm gonna select all of them. So G1 through H3. And what I need to do is to change these back to a normal cell style because their cell styles got changed before. So to do that, if I go to cell styles under the home tab in the styles group, the first thing you'll see will be normal. So when I click normal, all of these go back to normal.
Thank you, I got it.
You're welcome. Now, there's other things you could have done too to fix that. You could have cleared the formats from here. But in this case, I think it would be better to do the cell styles because that's where the issue came up before. So this is kind of fixing it in the same manner. Oh, okay. Sorry, my leg was cramping up. All right, so that is everything I was showing you guys from print. Down here that you can scale it so that you fit everything on all the columns on one page. So it forces everything to print on one page. All the columns at least. So you can make changes with that too. Whenever you're printing out something in Excel, it's always good to look to see what's the print preview? What does it look like? Does it have what I expected it to have? Or does it make sense that if I print it out this way, would it make sense to someone that was looking through it? And if not, then you can make some adjustments here. And then sometimes you'll have to go back and make the adjustments on the actual spreadsheet. But most of the time, you can make changes here to make it to your liking. In worst case, you can launch that page setup window from even here. Okay. All right. Like I said, that's everything in regards to module 1. Next week, I can go through actually go through project 1A and 1B if anyone needs. But I have other examples as well. As I said, 1G is what I'm going to start at though, and I'm going to go through just talking about what the instructions are asking you, and where you can and try to help you refer back to things that we have talked about. Because generally, when it comes to the greater projects with the G's, students struggle is understanding that they have done it before. A lot of times they feel that I don't know how to do this because they don't have the same picture or the guided instruction where it says, hey, go to this tab and this group, click this command, and they give you a little picture of the icon to click on. You won't always get that with G. Sometimes it'll tell you, for instance, it may it may have instructions like merge your center A1 through F1. Give it a title self style. And so in that instance, it's like, okay, I need to know how to do a title self style. I need to know how to merge a center. Where are those commands? If you forget where they are, you can always go to the tell me box, like I told you guys about how this helped me get a job once. So if I didn't know how to do title, I could type in here, and those aren't there. Well, it says title self style. So let me try this. Oh, there's self styles coming up. Oh, there's a title on there. So see, like if you forget where something is, you can use the tell me box to help. Google is another way to help, but I'm going to go through that to kind of try to take off some pressure with doing Project G. Okay. So yeah, so I'll do that on Tuesday. So turn in the quarterly one and this one for 1A and 1B, right? There will be a space. Yes, there is a space to upload these. I added at the bottom there, extra credit scripture lectures for 1A, extra credit scripture lecture for project 1B. So you can upload those here if you completed them. And then for your actual project 1A and 1B, you will go here. And I'm assuming that many of you have already probably finished 1A just because I've seen a lot of submissions for it. Or I've seen some submissions, I've seen 4 submissions for it. But you will probably be getting started or have already started 1B, which is good too. You will want to submit both of these files together. Okay. The page numbers are here. Yeah. Okay. So there are 2 things you have to submit: Project 1A and 1B. The scripture lectures are extra credit. Okay. So I don't want to see the scripture lectures here. I want to see Project 1A and 1B here. That's what I want to see here.
And the last name and the first name as well in the file that we send.
The first name, last name. These I'm not as worried about because we're doing them together ish. Yeah. So you can just follow whatever I don't think in the instructions I give on the scripture lectures, I don't think I ever say to do first name, last name. I think I always say like script solution or something like that. So
okay.
Yeah. So don't worry about that.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So we're a minute over now. Are there any other questions anyone has? No. I'm gonna stop recording here.